morning, friends. Stoking Embers. Today I'm doing a VR to Piper Downs, coming at you from Chandler, Arizona. How's that, buddy? So this morning I'm drinking just some Superstition Springs coffee, or Superstition coffee from Superstition Roastery. I've shown you guys pictures or videos from out there. And in the pipe, this is a P7 series from Dagner Pipes. It's supposed to be a second, but it's a pretty good pipe. It's for an inexpensive pipe. It's one of my better smoking ones. And inside I've got Highland Cigars, also a local shop. They're out of Scottsdale, Arizona. They actually had a YouTube channel for a while. I don't think they're relevant anymore or current. But in this pipe, I'm smoking their proprietary blend. It may be somebody else's, but it's it's chocolate raspberry bourbon, or raspberry bourbon. And I don't taste or smell the bourbon, but it sure does smell and taste like cordial cherries. So I figure that's not bad. That's my sweets for this morning. So, worst job ever. Now, I won't get into supervisors because I've had a lot of bad supervisors in some pretty good jobs. But my worst job was actually I spent 2 summers doing it with a best friend of mine. And it was one of the ways that we were able to earn a lot of money really fast to go help pay for college. And it was in just outside of downtown Phoenix area, an industrial area. And it was a powder coat shop. And we powder coated mostly industrial stuff, occasionally bike frames. So we'd get a bike frame in for a police department or some racer that wanted their bike done. We also did ceramic coating. So we'd get in engines for NASCAR and we'd other race companies, and we would powder coat their engine blocks, and then we would do ceramic coat and Teflon coat the cylinder and pistons. We did that for big rigs, for over the road, supposed to extend the miles on the truck and the engine. So we did quite a bit of that. I think one of our biggest contracts that we did was with U-Haul, and we did massive amounts of parts for U-Haul. No, the job was the supervisor was great, and the people are sketchy, but they were pretty cool too. Some have prison records, jail records. It was a pretty sketchy crowd. And so really the basis of the job was it was an outside big warehouse. So you're either inside or out, and then there was no air conditioning. It was swamp cooled, which once the monsoon season kicks in, that doesn't mean a whole lot of anything. It's just hot and humid at that point. So you start out basically on the dock, and the trucks would come in, just big flatbed trailers full of parts. And one of the guys would come in with a forklift. He'd take the boxes off the truck, drop them down onto the ground, and we'd have to go in and sort them. And they were raw metal, so they were greasy, they had shag, and they were kind of nasty in parts. So the reason it would suck is it's like summertime outdoors in Arizona when it's 110, 115, 116 out, and it just get hot as all get out. And you're out there in the sun working in metal, so you had to have the heavy gloves on and racking the parts. The parts were dirty. It was they were heavy. It was just kind of nasty. And then you'd clean them off, so there's metal shavings and flying all over the place, and they ended up in your nose and your ears and your hair. End up all over your clothes. It just was kind of a filthy mess. So cleaning them, you got to one of 2 ways on cleaning them. One of those was to use use a compressor and blow them out. Look for any metal stuff that had to be wiped down, so alcohol rags. If they were really bad or had been painted once before, you take them out to this 55-gallon drum of Zep. And I don't remember what chemical specifically was in there, but Zep is a brand. And it was nowhere near the actual where we worked. You had to walk out into this dirt field about 100 150 yards, and pop open that lid, drop the Zep in carefully, no splashing, and then put the lid back on, secure it so that it would sit there and it would just eat the crud out of everything. But this stuff was to use it, you had to wear the gloves that went all the way up the arms and put on this apron thing so in case it splashed at you. Surprisingly, they never made you wear goggles or a face shield, but I've never splashed. It was pretty good. Because the sandblasters, they were in a big metal shed, kind of like a barn. And it looked something like the apocalypse. Those guys wore these huge masks and suits that looked like what the bomb guys would wear, right? And they carried the hoses. These breather tubes came out the back, and they'd walk in and close the booths behind them. They go to sandblasting, and every now and then I'd have to go in there and help those guys out. And so you just don on a similar mask, and there's no air conditioning. It's just you're in the middle of the sun in a metal box, working metal and sand. Like a beach dune, there was these sand from all the aggregate material was just built up along the walls, and it was just you couldn't see until when you opened the doors. It was worse because the light would come in and it would almost blind you as it reflected off of the particles in the air. And then you take those parts out and bring in the next one for the sandblaster, and he'd go back to work. They decided to train me to paint, and I don't know what I did for it, but you were inside the warehouse, so you're released out in the sun. You couldn't have fans or anything blowing on you because that would interfere with the powder and the powder coat. And so you'd got on this big white bunny suit or your respirator mask. And guys would wheel in your rack, and then you'd go to paint, and it just this paint gun, and it had a little dispersal at the end, looked like a funnel inversed, and it would come out, and you would just shake it, and that's how the powder would just kind of lay and attract to the metal part. And after it was done, you'd wheel it out and throw it into the ovens. Well, to do that, I had to sort of apprentice with the painter himself, and he was a funny but a surly old guy that you just didn't want to piss off. He was an old biker, white supremacist, had done some prison time, and he would do things like you're in the bathroom, just using the urinal, and he would say, he'd come in and go, when you wanted to get a guy or shank him, that's when you did it. You caught him at the urinal. Because when he had his manhood in his hands, he wasn't going to be able to put up much of a fight. And I was thinking, what the hell did I get myself into with this job? And he was also, Rick, as his apprentice, he drove this old 70s, early 70s, maybe 72 GMC pickup truck. And Rick was an alcoholic. And he'd go out and he'd get his drink on, him and Jack Daniels. And he'd make his way back to the parking lot of the shop, and now Billy and I, we'd have to be at the shop at 4:30 in the morning, and so it was a good drive. So we'd leave about 3:45 from our house. We'd pull up at 4:30. I'd bang on the GMC, Rick, let's go, and he'd cuss at me or what have you. Usually he'd tell me something, F off or some other stuff, and he'd make his way into the bathroom where he'd clean himself up. And he taught me that the secret to painting was, you had to get that shake on with the gun, and that's what laid the powder out. Because unlike like a spray can or a regular paint sprayer, you don't lay it in layers. You actually have to have it kind of flow around in the air and fall onto the part. And Rick had taught me that if I went and got my drink on the night before, then that next morning the shakes came naturally, and I didn't have to work as hard at it. That we get the coffee pot going. That was our job as the new guys. And we decided to run over to the convenience store across the street at Circle K. And this morning, neither one of us had really said anything to each other. It was just early. We were tired. It was midsummer. It was 115, 118 degree weather. So we had decided to go over to a Circle K and get ourselves something cold to drink, and just some fruit juice, really. And so at this point, it's probably about 4:45. We're at the Circle K. Billy grabs orange juice. I grab an apple juice. Walk up to the counter to pay. And the girl working the register she rings up the apple juice and says, are you constipated? And I was like, what? Squeeze me, baking powder? And she says, well, are you constipated? You know, apple juice helps you if you're constipated. And Billy, I'm still trying to register what this girl is talking about. It's the first full sentence in English that anybody has spoken to me all morning. And Billy is just behind me crying. He's laughing so hard. And I'm like, no, darling, I just want some apple juice. I says, I'm pretty fine, but thanks, you know. I still don't know what the hell that line was for. I'll tell you what, if she was attracted to me, that was a hell of a way to ask me out. Would have been an interesting date, right? So, at any rate, it was just those kind of days. And they had an old Vietnam vet in the back that was the maintenance guy, and he was an avid hunter. And he would do things like, he'd build his own trailers and equipment and stuff, and he built this utility camp trailer to go on a hunt with, and he wanted it painted this, well, he was going to camo it, but he wanted this space olive drab green, and then he was going to do the camo himself afterwards. And Rick, being the guy that he is, he painted it hot pink. Now you have to understand that when you first see it on, it's pink, you know, but it's like Pepto-Bismol pink. So then you wheel it into the ovens, and I haven't described them, but the ovens are massive. You could drive a Suburban into one of these ovens. It's a big ovens, and you generally cook the paint between 450 and 500 degrees. The mirror finishes requiring a higher temp. Wrinkle finishes or veined were a lower temp. On a rare occasion, it was up at 5.25. So that sucked in itself to come in from 118 to go into these 450 degree ovens, and you open these massive doors. And it was like opening the doors to Hades itself, you know, and then you have to reach in with these heavy duty gloves to grab a metal rack, and you pull it out, and you just felt like you were cooking as you were going into, because you had to go into the oven to grab these things out. And so the hot paint goes in, and it goes in looking like Pepto-Bismol, and it comes out, it is glowing, it is liquid. I mean, it is just this obscenely bright, like almost cherry tinge to this pink. And that maintenance guy happened to be there when we pulled it out. He said, "Is that my trailer? You son of a..." He just went on a rant, hollering and screaming, because boy, that was going to be some work to get that paint off. And Rick he didn't care. He's like, "Oh, I'm done for the day. I'm going home." It was awesome. So the guys were cool, and I enjoyed it. The reason I say it was the worst job was just because it was just a lot of hard labor. You know, lifting frames for U-Haul trucks and hitches, and it's oftentimes the racks are over your head. And at the time when I was in there, you know, paying for college, my father was a police officer for a small town locally nearby, outskirts of Phoenix. And he said he was going to swing by one day and take Billy and I to lunch. And so sure enough, one day we're out there and we're lumping, you know, so we got the trailer unloaded, and now we're racking parts, and we had these series of frames for U-Haul, and it just required 4 guys to lift them because they're just massive. So everybody's out on the dock, and they're all working. Here comes this police car, and it's the old man, and it pulls up. And Billy says, "Oh, look, your dad's here." And I was like, "Oh, all right." And all of a sudden, it was like that we had that frame, and we were hoisting it to get it hooked, and it got real heavy. And I was like, "What the hell?" And I'm looking around, and the whole dock cleared out. There were guys just gone. It was like one of the Western movies with tumbleweeds and everything going past. And guys were like, my dad was there, and he's like, "Hey, you guys ready?" Yeah, about 10 minutes we'll clean up. So Billy and I start we could get that frame. We managed to get it racked, and we're walking back, and there's these. All the guys were hiding behind stacks of pallets and the big heavy aggregate for the sandblasters, and they're like, hey, white boys, who's the cop looking for, man? Who's he looking for? I'm like, dude, it's my old man. We're just grabbing lunch. Oh, okay. Let us know when he leaves. I used to have a Chevy Love pickup truck, a 1978 Chevy Love, and I locked the keys inside. I couldn't get in. And one of the bangers was like, hey, that's no problem. We can get you in there. I'm like, really? He goes, yeah. So now Billy and I have been farting around with this truck for about 10 minutes. Couldn't do it. So those guys walked over. One of them jumped onto the tailgate or onto the bed of the truck, managed to pop open my sunroof, slipped in, unlocked the truck, and he slipped into the cab, unlocked the truck, and walked out and goes, there you go. I mean, it was done in like 30 seconds. And he says, do you want me to start it for you too? You know what, man? Screw you, get out of here. And so I guess that was my worst job. And it was just because there's no place really you're going to go. You were just, that was it. It was what it was, and you were going to, it was a summer job for me. Nobody expected us to stay there, but the people were really good. The supervisors I worked for, they were good people. But, oh well, I guess that's all I got to say about that. I hope you've enjoyed the video, Piper Downs. I enjoy your channel. It's some good fun, and congratulations on your subs. Catch you later.
Never cared, baby.